Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here, and I'm still working on my 16 journal covers. This is the two that I have finished to show you, but I will be working on the other 14 yet. Not quite there. But when I was doing this video, this is part 3 of the series. And if you're just tuning in and coming to my channel for the first time, first of all, welcome to the channel. And second of all, you may want to go back and start at part 1. And the different parts are in the description box below, where you can just click on the link and go directly to part 1, and then same moving forward. But what I had done is I showed you in part 2 the different materials I was going to work with. And I said I would put the journals together, and then I would save one journal and do that one with you, and then you could see exactly how I put all these pieces on and the different trims and stuff that I used. However, it was still supposed to be part 2, and the video ran so long that I had to cut it off where you see part 2 is ended. And so the finishing, the final journals that you will see will be, or how I did the trims, will be coming up in this video. So just stay tuned and continue watching, and you will see where I left off at the end of part 2, and this is now part 3. At the end of the video, I talk about going on to the next video, and I say part 3, but it's actually going to be part 4, because this is now part 3, and we will start putting the signatures together and choosing the papers. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned. Just keep watching. See you later. Okay, I'm back. Well, here is what it looks like right now. Still isn't much, but it's getting better. So the ruffle is on, the trim at the top is on, the burlap. I have the tie on here. I have the fringe on the bottom and the trim there on top of that. I'm going to save whatever I decide to put in here for later, but you can help me choose that as well. I'm going to get you to leave me some comments as to which way you think I should go. And then when you open it up inside, I have that wool trim here, the fiber. And I have the other fiber trim at the top and bottom here to finish. And I really like how it finishes off this fringe along the bottom, which is nice. Working with brown fabric, there's lots of bits and pieces. You know, everything is staticky right now this time of year, and things are landing on here and sticking. So at the very end, I will take, some packing tape and clean off the inside before I start working and putting things together in there. But it's going to be a constant thing until they're completely done, that things get picked up in here, because you're opening it and there's always fluff, right? So yeah, so that's what it looks like right now. And I made one minor little change, which I will show you, but it's getting better. So I'm not going to retie that, but here is that image that I'm using, and I'm just going to tuck it into here for you to see what it's starting to look like. This will allow for some embellishing at the top and down at the bottom yet, which will be one of the last phases of this series that I'm doing. So that I can show you after. But let me show you how I put it together now. So I'll put that aside, grab another cover. Now I'm going to stop after we put this together and save the rest for part 3, because for me to come back after I do the other 14 of these, it will be a few hours, I am sure. So I will show you the 14 of them, well, all 16 finished in the next video, because we're going to run over an hour with this. So the very first thing I did is I cut a 36 inch long piece of seam binding. Okay, and I just kind of wing it. So I'm just going to pinch it here so I know where the center is. And I just kind of winged it and found the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm running along that brown line there. And I am just going to run my glue across like this. And put the tie into the glue and smooth it out. You're not going to see the glue showing through once we're done. And then I turned it over, matched it up with where I already know it has to match up with. Did the same thing, followed along the line. And put it in place. And then smooth it out a little bit. And then going back to this side, I did lift it up and I made sure that I got glue under there so that it is really held down. But you got to make sure that you're not touching the two pieces, because if the glue oozes, you could close it and also leave marks from the glue. Working with brown or any kind of dark color like black, burgundy, it's so risky with marks from the glue, so you do have to be careful. And I'm just kind of pulling this to squish the glue down and squish it down so that it's completely glued in that spot. And the reason for that is when you put the fringe on, the fringe is going to be sitting on top of that. So if there's any movement in here, the fringe is going to move with it. So this way we know everything is secure. So now I'm just going to open this up because the glue is still oozing just a tiny little bit, but don't worry, we're not going to see that after, but it's still wet. So I don't want it to touch anywhere along here. So I'm going to lift this up again, and just where I didn't catch it with the glue, I'm going to put some glue in there and pull this sort of down into the glue so that it squishes it all down. And it will ooze a little bit on the other side. That's why we don't want to have the two pieces together. So just so you can see, I don't even think you can see any glue here, but you can see it on this side a little, tiny little bit here. But that's, like I said, that's going to get covered. So once that was on, I put on the burlap. Now, when I did the burlap on this one, I glued it down completely. But then I realized, even though I've got this picture on here, what am I going to put on the back? And I thought, well, I'm going to embellish this with something. That'll be the last stages. But then I thought, what a shame. I should have made this into a pocket. And then I thought, well, I could even make this into a pocket, but I've already glued this down, so it only goes like a little ways where it's open. So now with you, I'm going to leave it as a pocket. So going back to this front side, I'm going to take my burlap, and I just I wanted to leave about 2 lengths of that brown houndstooth there. So I'm just pushing it in place. I don't want it to go right to the edge because my ruffle is going to cover it anyway. So just holding it with my fingers and holding it straight, like kind of eyeballing it straight. Some of you measure, I don't. It's probably now a good idea to put these ties inside a little bit, I find. Okay, and so just kind of eyeballing it a little bit, I lift it a little, and I'm going to put a line of glue here because I know that this is still going to be under the ruffle. So putting a line of glue, and this pattern kind of lends itself to telling me, I'm not putting it completely, I'm just putting a little bit right now. And I've got my pokey tool here. If you don't have a pokey tool, a pencil, the end of a pen, whatever will work just fine too for poking things down. But a pokey tool means you won't use as much of a point, like a surface, to push down. So you don't have to worry about glue oozing out too much. Which is, I mean, a toothpick would work if you don't have a pokey tool. If you have a geometry set, the thing that makes the circles, that's a great pokey tool. In fact, that's a great pokey tool for a lot of things. it's a dangerous thing too. Okay, so I've got the glued down here. So now this time I want to leave this open. I was, you know, drizzling glue all the way back and forth across here, and that closed it up. But now I'm only putting glue along this bottom edge. So I don't have to worry about this. I just want to pull it reasonably tight because you want it to be nice and smooth. We're not going to put much more than maybe a tag in there anyway. And so I've kind of pulled it towards here. And then I'm just going to lift up this corner and just eyeball it. I mean, if the pocket doesn't go all the way down, that's fine. But I'm just going to kind of eyeball it all the way down here. So I'm going to follow the brown, like kind of on the both lines there, or on the one line. And even if you don't completely glue it shut, nothing's going to fall out of it. I mean, it's pretty good that way. And I don't glue along the spine. One, because I'm going to be, here, I just want to close that first. I'm going to be stitching signature through here, so I don't want to have to try to poke through the glue. And it's just kind of hard to get around that corner anyway. So once it's glued down, I'm going to carefully now lift it, roll it over, and you can see I have way too much. That was on purpose, because it's better to have a little bit more than less. And I also, I find it easier to work off the roll with this stuff because it's so curly. And so I'm just kind of lining it up, and I'm going to bring it to about the same thing, about maybe 1/4 of an inch from the edge, because I know that my ruffle is going to cover that. You could go right to the end if you want. It just adds extra bulk in your ends. So now holding it in place, because I want it to be flat, I'm going to just lift this up a little bit and run my glue along that line. Now I'm using a precision glue gun. It is called Surebonder. I bought it on Amazon. I'm not an affiliate for Amazon. Refuse to be an affiliate for Amazon. But it is a great product and well worth it. Oh, I went a little too far, but that's okay. I'm going to just hold it up here. I'm talking. Because I don't want to go right to the edge. So I'm just rolling it back and holding it in place till the glue hardens a little bit. And just pressing that down. Okay. So now I'm going to take my scissors and just roughly cut this. I'm not too concerned if it's perfectly straight, because you are not going to see this once the ruffle is put down. Cluster. Snip it. Okay, making sure these are all tucked in now, and it's glued right to the edge here. So I'm just lifting this up. Now this is lifted a little tiny bit from the original cardboard, so I'm going to first lift this up. You can see it's coming through. I might have missed it. I'm just going to put a little hot glue in there and push that back down. I don't want it to touch the other side though, so I'm doing it from up here. Can you see what I'm doing there? I'm just kind of pushing it into the glue. All of this is going to get glued down further as we go along. Tucking those ribbons inside. This is the other reason I don't like ties at the beginning, because you're constantly having to be aware of where they are. So again, following, I've got my hand holding everything nice and smooth here, and I'm following just with my eyeball where this should go. If the pocket is a little narrower on the back, it's not a big deal. And I don't try to go the whole length of the burlap, because you run into errors that way. Sometimes things roll away on you and you get slightly distracted, and then your glue hardens and then you've got this big glue blobby thing sticking out. And so it's easier to just go small distances at a time. Now my glue gun is out of glue. There we go. Just added another glue stick here. All right, so going again. and taking my pokey tool. Can you see all that? Yep. And then I kind of know where I got to go here. So I'm just going to put my finger there. This is just my method. You know, everybody has a different way of doing this. Okay, so holding that out, I kind of know I got to go to that part. You could actually take your pokey tool and just rest it there so you know where to go as far as the rest of the glue. If you wanted, I'm using my finger, but this is the edge where you're not going to see the glue anyway, because it's going to get caught in the ruffle. How many times do I have to say that, eh? Kim, we get it. We get it, Kim. Okay, so one little spot sticking up here. In this case, I'm just going to put it on the burlap and then push it down. This way I know it's right to the edge of the burlap, and I'm pushing it in place. So burlap is on the two sides, and now I have a pocket. Will this be a good thing to show you? Yeah, so now I have a pocket, but I'm going to not really push it right through, but I think this is only paper, so it's getting caught on the burlap. But if you have something like cardstock where you're putting a tag in, it should be fine to put in here. I don't think I caught it on anything. No, it goes right through. So it's just a matter of playing with something that it'll work. Then I did my trim at the top. And I have a piece here still. So again, I'm going to start by, because this is going to have the little loops sticking up. And how convenient, I'm just going to use my sewing line as a method of where to put this to cover the sewing line. So I'm going to start at the end here and just put a little bit of glue to get me started. And sit that into the glue. Just catching it with my finger a little bit. It doesn't have to go right to the edge either, but in this case I made it go to the edge. I don't think I would use this trim for anything else other than for journals, because it's very, even though it's some type of fiber, it's very plasticky feeling. So I wouldn't use it for clothing, definitely. I wouldn't use it for a lot of things. And then lifting, I'm just going to follow along the edge here. And then I'm kind of pulling it this way. That helps to set it into the glue. And I don't want to handle it too much because it's very porous. So you could very easily get burnt with this. Same with lace. This is how I do lace, exactly the same way. And you don't want to be squishing the glue down, because then you risk it coming up while it's hot, coming up with your pokey tool. So I'm just pushing gently into it. And then you can see I didn't do all the way. I'll just do a little tiny bit more, but I don't want to go, well, actually, no, I can go right to the spine on this one because my signature is not going to come that high anyway. So I can go right around the corner, but I'm just going to kind of pull it down. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way so you can see this. I'm just pulling it down a little bit to set it into the glue. That's the easiest way. You don't get burnt so easily, and you also don't have a lot of glue mishaps this way because you're not touching the glue. Couple of strings there. Okay, rolling it over and running my glue across again. And just kind of pressing it in. Now, there are glue strings that will make you crazy, but just take a hairdryer, not a heat gun, because then you risk it coming away from the item that it's on. But just take a hairdryer I have one in the studio, but it's no point to put it on and show you. It's a hairdryer. So I usually just go over everything when I'm done, or if I see a blob of glue that I don't want to show, because what happens is the hairdryer will make it clear again so it doesn't leave a white mark. And I'm going to end just a little bit before the edge here. I went further on the other one, but I'm going to end just a little bit before, and I'm going to press it into the glue and kind of, again, pull down a little bit to catch the item to the glue. And then I can lift this back. You can see where I have just glued it a little bit. And taking my scissors, I'm going to cut it. Now, if I didn't get the glue right to the edge here, it doesn't matter, because when I put the ruffle on, it will catch all of that. So now, along the bottom, I want to put my fringe. Because that's going to go on before I put the other trim on top. Now I've already secured the end of this, and I will show you how I did that when we get to the other end of it. So I'm just going to take a little dot of glue and put here. Now this fringe, I want to come right to the end, because this is kind of part of the finishing. Well, no, sorry, not this. I'm thinking of the ruffle. So I'm going to put this sort of to the end, not quite. And I'm just pushing it into the bottom. And I'm using the same guide that I made with my sewing stitches, but you know, you just line it up to something. Like it would line up very nicely to this pattern. So that'll work as well. So I've got that first little bit held down. And again, this is a dark color going on to a dark color, so you don't want to overhandle it as much as possible, but you want to have it glued down, of course. And I'm just going to run the glue a little ways. And here I'm working right off the roll, so you don't want to get glue on the fringe. You don't want to get glue on the pieces that are already, that is still attached. And there is a reason why I work with it right on the roll, and you'll see that at the end. Okay, so again, this, I can go around the corner. You know, I wasn't thinking when I said that with the trim, because my signatures are not going to come that low. They're going to be more like a sort of the top of the burlap, the middle of the burlap, and kind of the end, which will secure the burlap there as well. So I'm just going to put my glue to about the halfway point here, and carefully, hoping I don't get my fringe stuck in it anywhere, I'm going to again press and sort of pull down a little bit to squish it into the glue. This way you're not handling, and you don't have to worry. I've got a big string there. You don't have to worry about sticking your finger on there and then the glue oozes through, and then you go to pull away and you have this big white mark after. So pulling it down kind of does that pressing for you where you're not actually in contact with it. I hope that all makes sense. Okay, and then turning it over. I'm going to go a little ways again. And roll that into the glue there. And just kind of press and pull. Just takes a few seconds. Now, I'm coming to the end here. I'm just holding it in place while it's still hardening. So I'm coming to the end here. I don't need this to go right to the end because the ruffle is going to cover. So I want to stop, I think I want to stop there. Okay, so it's not quite to the end. So that is the mark I want to stop at. So I'm going to turn this over, and you have to kind of keep track of where you're going. sorry, I lost it. I lost it. Here we go. Okay, so I know that this is where I want to cut this, and I will bring it up a little closer as I can here. This is where I want to cut this. But if I cut this now, I risk this pulling away from here and unraveling a little bit, and I risk this pulling away and unraveling a little bit. And I take my hot glue gun and I just run a little bit of glue on both sides and smooth it out with the glue tip itself. And that will hold it in place. Now, of course, you got to wait for it to harden. And don't stick your finger in it. That's the tendency. We want to stick our finger to see if it's hardened, and then you've got glue everywhere. So you just have to wait it out. It starts to turn a little bit cloudy. You can tell. Yeah, I want to touch it. We all want to touch it, right? But we have to wait it out. Yeah, okay, it's good now. All right, so I have spread the glue where I want the last piece to be and onto the next one. So now I can take my scissors and just very carefully cut between the two. You don't want to go too far because then you'll cut the strings. So I have to come from both sides here now. So now I don't have to worry about this end unraveling. It is good to go. I can just glue the rest of this down. And I don't have to worry about this end unraveling because it is glued, and so it's ready to use on the next project. You could use your wet glues, your tacky glues, your Fabri-Tacs and the glitter glues, whatever you have. However, on these dark colors, that wet glue will seep through and you will have a mark that you see. Whereas this is just sitting on the surface here. It doesn't come through unless you put, of course, too much or you touch it. Remember, we're not supposed to touch it while it's gluing. So then I know that this is not going to unravel for my next project. I know I can just pin it back up to the board here, although I will be carrying on. But it is ready to go. So now I can finish this little piece. Just in here, but now I kind of know where I'm going. I'm sort of going to that brown line, but I want to do a little bit at a time here first. I never like to go the whole way because between putting the glue gun down, you know, something could move on you and then you risk glue on it. And then I can pull to get it in place and then just lift a little bit. Like I said, I've eyeballed a marker so I know how far to put the glue. So I'm just going to stick this down and push this into the glue ever so lightly so it doesn't come through on this green trim. So that's on. Okay, next step is this brown, which I still have another piece here because this was a pre-cut piece. So I'm going to get this out of my way. And so now I'm going to go put the trim going this way, and I'm using the trim itself as a guide to where I want to put this trim. So a little bit on the end so that I don't touch into it. And laying it on top. There's my pokey tool. And that's just to hold it in place. And then running a very small bead of glue, because this is just to tack this down now, going about halfway or a small portion, not the whole thing, keeping sure you got your ends out of the way. You know, I didn't measure this piece. I hope it goes around. Yeah, I think it should. Now I'm just pulling, sort of, you know, pulling it down a little bit as I do it. So, like I said, then it kind of rounds into the I hope I'm not annoying with this, but this is how I do it, and so it's the best way to explain it. And the reasons are because you're making a finished cover and you don't want to get glue anywhere. And then going into the glue and kind of pulling down as I go. I see I did kind of move it over a little bit, but that's okay. And then I can turn this over. Make sure your fringe is out of the way. Make sure your ties are out of the way. And then little dot in the fold, and then I'm going about maybe a halfway again. So once you do a few covers like this, you get used to making them. Now, this isn't the only way I make covers. There are many different ways that I make covers, but this is a great way to make covers where you don't want the rough edges to show. And you know, sometimes working with fabric and trying to get all those corners to be folded in perfectly, it can be a nightmare, especially when you're just starting out. This is a great way to not have to worry about the corners, but you do have to be careful how you put your trims on. And so right now you can't see any rough edges. So even if I cut this with pinking shears or tore the fabric, you can't see the torn edges along the top or along the bottom because I've covered it with these trims. And maybe you don't have this type of trim, this fringe trim, or you know, I'm sure you've got laces or other things that you can add on here. And I will have some videos coming up in the future of trim alternatives because I have a million ways to do these things. And so if I don't have a trim in this color, I make a trim in this color. So here again, I'm going to stop just a little bit shy because I know I don't need that much. And this is just adding another layer of bulk. So if I stop about there, I might as well just, no, I think I'll wait and just cut it once I've glued it. So I'm just going to, I'm holding it with this finger because I didn't go right to the tips. None of these tips are done. I can stick my fingernail underneath all of them. So that's where I'm holding it so that it doesn't lift. And then I can just lift it up a tiny little bit and cut that piece off. And then press it down a little bit more, knowing that all of this rough edge is going to be covered. So again, we've covered all the rough edges along the outside here. You don't see it. It's perfectly finished. So let's do the ruffle trim. Now in this case, ruffle trim with glue is horrible. So I like to pre-cut this just a little bit, maybe about a ½ inch longer than what I think I need. A little bit more sometimes. And then just cut it. So I'm going to cut 2 of these to put on front and back. And this one, when I was making it, I can see here, this is where I joined 2 pieces. So there's a little piece sticking up here. I'm just going to take my scissors and trim it. And if it wasn't the same width, you know, you can sort of see that it's a little smaller from one end to the other. You can just do a little haircut along the edges or live with it. And I live with it. But I just didn't want that one little piece that was sticking out. Because when you're doing this, I just keep going with lots of strands. I usually cut 10, 20 at a time. And do them all at once. So here I'm opening this up and tucking my fringe out of the way and my ties out of the way. And it doesn't matter if you work top to bottom or bottom to top. It's whatever is convenient for you for gluing. And so my fringe, here's where my journal ends. So I'm going to put a dot of glue right where my journal ends to get this started. And I'm going to use the seam as my marker for gluing this. So putting a little glue at the end here and running my seam along that glue edge. Now you're going to have glue seep through. That is tulle. So you do want to be careful, and you have to be constantly mindful of this fringe, of your tie, and of the ruffle itself. So I'm just going to move that out of the way a little bit. Sure you are. And then I see I've got a couple of raggy bits here. I'm just going to trim them off because they can catch into your glue gun and then start pulling. So my seam, my sewing thread is going to sit on top of the edge where I put the glue. So that is my marker for putting this down. And I work in small sections because as soon as you start putting longer sections, this thing will curl up on you and then you have a mess. Like, I'm really risking it as it is with that being so close to the edge there. But this is how I do my fringes, or my ruffles, sorry. Now you absolutely can use your art glitter glue and your other favorite glues that aren't a hot glue gun, but it takes longer. You've got to wait for everything to dry. You have the same problems where you got to worry about seepage. I like to work quickly because I do this all the time. And, you know, there is a saying, I hope it doesn't sound too off to you, but time is money. So the longer I spend on doing stuff like this, the more I have to charge for my journals. And, you know, I have to keep the prices fair as much as possible. But you can see how much work goes into this cover. And this cover is certainly not going to be finished at this stage. It still has a lot of work. So I'm going again, small sections. But yeah, I work with a glue gun because it's faster. It holds really well. And I know my stuff is not going to come apart. Now, when I'm pressing into the seam here, I know I risk there being some glue and it's going to come through and there's going to be little white spots. But that's okay because I know I'm going to run something decorative down the center that will cover that, the last final bit. But I'm going to have you guys hopefully tell me which ones I should use or what I should use, because I'm not going to do the finishing until you've seen what it looks like, and then you can help me to decide, and I will let my subscribers kind of vote on how it should be finished. Now remember, I made this a little bit longer, going into the glue. And even if there's a spot that I've missed, it will get caught in one of the next steps coming up from the other side, or I will catch it when I'm gluing the final decorative trim on there. Okay, and this time I'm going right to the end of the book, to the cover, end of the cover, and just kind of going into the glue again and pulling down a little bit, making sure I'm still staying on the cover. So I'm going to hold this part of the ruffle here, and I'm just pulling into the bottom, or, you know, down from the journal. Does that make sense? I hope. Okay, so that's on. And you can see there are a few of those little straggler rough ends. You could probably also see that this would be lifting a little tiny bit, but we're going to fix that when we're working on the inside. So I'm just going to leave this part hanging for now. I did come really close here at the bottom, so I don't have to worry about the bottom, but that I will trim off after, but it's still kind of warm, so I'll wait. And I will go on to do the front. And I had pre-cut a piece here, right? Oh yeah, this is how I work. All right, tie out of the way, fringe is way over there, thank goodness. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start here in the corner. And I think I'll just rest this on here. Okay, so I'm going to lift that up, put a little bit of glue here where I want the ruffle to sit, and I'm putting the seam into the glue so that I know that it's sitting on the journal, and just pressing it a little bit into place to hold it. Piece of fluff there. Okay, lifting it to get it out of my way. And I keep going here, not going too far. It's kind of like watching paint dry, I know. Or golf, as I always say. I hope none of you are golfers. I always say, oh, it's like watching golf. Sorry, I never got the concept of that either. I know I'm kind of limited in some things, but yeah, I never understood golf. I'm so grateful my husband is not a golfer. He's a football fanatic when it's football season. Thank goodness he's not a hockey fanatic. Sorry, Barry and Lori. But thank goodness Tom is. Tom will watch the end of the last few games, but he doesn't watch a lot of hockey. But football is his thing, and he becomes a different human during football season. And he does watch college football and Rose Bowls and Banjo Bowls or whatever they're called, banjo games. He watches all of that. But that's okay. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a lot of Gail Agostinelli. I watch Hazel, Caroline, Brenda, Joan. I watch Roxy's creations. So yeah, that's my football. Okay, going right down to the end here with the last stretch. Pushing that in. I watch a lot of other channels too. Treasure Books just did a really fun little project. Did you see it? Oh, it's so cute. She folds up paper and makes it into different layers. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's just well worth it. All right, that's on, and we're going to leave that one to dry or harden a little bit. But I'm going to go back now and trim this one down. But this little piece that I'm going to cut off is going into my cluster pile. And if you don't like the squared off corners, you can also just give it kind of a little haircut and round corner it just a little bit so it doesn't look like you just chopped it. And same with this one here. I'm going to just take the edge here and just trim that a little bit so it doesn't look so square. And I think this one should be good enough to cut now. But this one I got to be careful of the fringe. So I'll just cut it a little bit longer. And there is our cover on the outside. It is done just like the other one. But this time we have pockets on the front and on the back that can be used for a variety of things. You could just even stick just a pen in there if you wanted, or a pencil. But now I'm going to open up on the inside, because on the inside I'm going to put this brown fiber here and the green fiber. I know this is kind of multicolored, but I'm just calling it brown. And so I'm going to start with the brown. Yes, this is how I work. And I'm using a crochet hook to make this a little bit thicker. And I'm going to crochet a long chain to finish the edges here. I won't do the whole thing because it's repetitive. But if you know how to crochet, well, then you would know how to make a chain. That's one of the first things you have to do. If you don't know how to crochet, there are lots of tutorials on how to do it. This is I could probably crochet a small piece if I had to, but this is the extent of my crochet. I usually leave a little longer tail. This is longer than what I normally do. And I start to crochet my chain. And again, this is going to be like watching paint dry, golf. And for any crocheter out there, you're probably horrified at my crochet method. I know it's not the best, but it works for me. And for those of you that are going to ask me, for this one, I'm using a size G needle, which is the English version, I think. I don't know what it would be, maybe like a size 2 or 3 in American methods or American measurements, because I have some that are 6 and 6.5 and 7 that I use. But I start to crochet my chain, knowing that there's going to be some give because it does stretch. And so you want to be, I know where my knot is, where I started. It makes like a little knot. And so that's going to be at the end of my journal. And so I have still a long ways to go. I don't even try to say, well, it's going to be so many chains, because it depends on the wool. It depends on the size of the journal that I'm working on. And it just depends on the number of fibers, because sometimes I mix fibers and I'll use 2 or 3 colors all together. But I want a little bit of play because sometimes you pull really tight and then you've got extra left over, and sometimes you're not pulling quite as much. So I kind of just keep going until it's pretty much as long as I could stretch it to get to the other end. Just to give you an idea. Okay, so if I stretch this really goes past where I need to go. So I will take maybe 1 or 2 stitches off, but you have to be careful with this fiber. It's easy to miss your stitch. Okay, so that's pretty good like that. So I can sort of feel where the knots are, that if I pull this as tight as I can, it's long enough. But I don't take my needle off, my crochet hook off yet. So I find where the knot is, and that's what I glue down into that corner, knowing that now I'm sort of kind of rolling it. See, I'm going to leave that long. I'm sort of rolling it into this edge, because there is a little bit of lifting spaces here. So I might just catch that a little tiny bit with the glue. Just a tiny little bit. Yeah. So I'm going to put some glue on that corner, but it's more on the edge, not so much on top. Okay, it's more along the edge of this journal. So that's what's where I'm gluing to. But when I'm doing it, I'm kind of rolling it into both sides. So it's like rocking it with your thumb or your finger. And this way you cover the rough edge from this side, but you're also kind of gluing it into the ruffle a little bit. And then pulling it back. Put a little bit of glue. And I pull at the same time that I'm putting it into the glue. I'm pulling the chains itself and then just kind of rocking it into the, and then the fibers will kind of roll with it, so it will cover any rough spots. And then every once in a while I stop and I check, do I make it to the end? because that's important when you get to the other end. So far so good. And so I'm just going to now do another section. Yeah, and when you're working with these kind of colors of fabric, it's a nightmare because you don't want to make a mistake. And so I'm pulling the chain a little bit, resting it into the glue, and kind of just rolling it back and forth with my fingers, just kind of very lightly, because you don't want the glue, of course, to stick to your fingers, and you don't want it to seep through the fibers either. Just kind of gently pushing it into the edge. And then double check, and I think I can still make it. Yep, I'm right to the edge here. That's good. So my knot will be right at the edge. If I had to, I would chain on a couple more, but I don't think I have to. So I'm going to leave it like that till I'm about here. So I'll do one more round and then check it again. And then pulling and pushing it into the glue. And then now checking one more time. I think I'm going to add one more crochet back on, even though I took 2 off there. So I'm going to make one more loop. And now I'm going to pull that loop so that I have a little bit of a tail that's going to be left over. And then I cut it and pull the rest of the fiber out. So that's now knotted it, and I have this little tail. So I'm holding on to the little tail, and then now going, I'm just going to get that fiber out of the way, and going right to the end to glue this down. Now, this might sound a little, like I'm overdoing it, I don't know. But honestly, if you take the time, you can make such a beautiful edge on your journals. And you are totally in control of how the finished result is, and quality is everything to me. If you color outside the lines, that's okay, if that's how it's supposed to be. But when you do things, always make an effort as if you were giving this to someone so special that you don't want anything to show, any raw edges, any glue edges. It makes such a difference in the quality of your workmanship. So just holding it up to you, you can see that it's now into the ruffle. This is secure all the way around. I don't have to worry about, if anything, the only thing I don't like about these ties is that you have to worry about their being mishandled. But for the most part, for finishing, this is a completely finished edge now. So I will do the same with this fiber, and I'm not going to do one now because we're really running late here. I can tell we're way over. But when I start this one, I would do the same thing, make my chain, go right across the whole thing. So when I go to glue this down, it's right here that these two are going to meet and be glued. So that will, again, in this case, it's that lovely finished seam that the ribbon, or the ribbon, the houndstooth fabric came with. Remember, it had a seam on either side. But there's still some rough edges from that seam that I want to cover, that I don't want to see. But I start by gluing in the corner here, and then I have these two tails, and when everything is hardened, I don't do it right away, but when everything is hardened, I will tie a knot into these two tails, and then I have the choice to either let them hang, or I can cut them off at the knot. And then, sometimes if they're a little nubby looking, I just put a little bit of glue in there and squish that into the glue if I don't want them. So in this case here, they're knotted already. I probably won't keep the top ones because they're a little too much for me. I don't like it. But I do like them on the bottom. We got so much going on here. I'm going to move this over now. So I do like them hanging on the bottom. And I will just now trim them to match the fringe, of course, and then I can bead them or I can just leave them like that. It just is airy, adds extra interest and decoration. So that's it for this video. The only thing I'm going to ask you, well, no, it's not quite. I've got a couple things, so don't run away yet, is do you like the bling down the center like that? Or do you think you would like this down the center, the fibers? I'm kind of torn. Where'd my picture go? Here it is. I seem to like both. So there's my picture. The picture is going to be part of the embellishing, and that will get done a little bit different, especially now that we have a pocket. We don't have a pocket on this one. The other one, we have a pocket. So yeah, do you like this better? So that would give me a third strand hanging down here, like another strand. Or do you like the bling? So please tell me in your comments. Then I have an idea of what to go with, because I do like both. I could see bling here in the front as well. So let me know what you think. And, you know, I will talk to you about what I plan to do with embellishing and decorating on this side. I have another little surprise that I think I'm going to try. And so the next video is going to it's going to be the digitals that I've chosen and the signature pages that I've chosen, and we will put a signature together in this book. Now, I have several kits, as I mentioned earlier, and I don't want to announce them yet because I have someone who's making a special kit for me. So I'm getting excited to use that. And that's my dear friend, Caroline. She is working on a Woodlands fairy kit. So I'm hoping that it will be done and ready, that I can print it and show you, and I will use it as one of my kit choices, because I am narrowing it down to 4. So I don't want to show you anything, but I know I for sure want Caroline's if she has a chance to finish it. I told her no pressure, but yeah, she can wave a magic wand and get it done. I'm sure of it. And then this way we will have a fun kit to play with together, and you'll be able to pick it up from Caroline and support one of our local YouTubers. Yes, next episode will be the choosing the digitals, choosing the papers that go inside, and stitching in the signature. So that'll be part 3. We're probably going to be about 6 parts by the time we're done. I will work on the other 14 journals to get them to at least this stage where we have a pocket. Sorry, everything's sticking to each other now. I've got fibers everywhere here. But I will have them all at this stage so that they will all be ready to go. And I just need you to tell me what's going to be trimming down there. But that'll be part of the embellishing at the end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, we are going to be so in trouble here. I've got almost a 2-hour video. I hope you've enjoyed this, and please leave your comments below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. I wish you all a very creative day and a creative weekend. Bye for now.